I'm Lisa Parenteau, and I'd like to welcome you to Lifting Others as We Rise, the podcast where we dive into the world of real estate and the power of positive thinking. In each episode, we're going to bring you inspiring conversations with real estate professionals and other thought leaders who have really harnessed the power of lifting others up along their journeys. So let's get ready to elevate our mindset. Lifting Others as We Rise podcast, where inspiration is a catalyst for action. Let's go. Welcome to Lifting Others as We Rise podcast. I am your host, Lisa Parenteau, Realtor, Team Leader, CRS, Broker Associate here on beautiful Cape Cod in Massachusetts, but most importantly, Glamma, to Eloise Ann, who's 5, Hazel, who's 6 months, and baby Navy Grace, who's due in June. So that is my most important and exciting role that I have in all of my hats of my closet. I know you're going to enjoy today's episode. I cannot wait to meet our guest and to learn more about her and her journey. So get comfy, settle in, grab some tea. If you're in the gym, readjust your headphones, whatever you're doing. And my intention, as always, is to discover the inspiration and catalysts for change in the stories of real estate leaders across the country. Today, I'm very excited to welcome my guest, Hadas Metzler. And Hadas is coming to us from San Diego, California. Her official bio talks a lot about her wealth of experience as also a certified interior designer. So I'd love to hear more about design and how that has come into your life and into you as a realtor today, because I think it's more and more important as we're continuing to really embrace our clients in a more holistic way with all of the changes that have happened in the past year or so. You've lived in New York City, in Maui, how exciting, and now San Diego. Yeah, and so you personally have really gone through the relocation process, which I think is so important. I think realtors who move multiple times and who go through relocation have a certain level of empathy for their clients. And, it's not always just the kind of, anxiety of what the heck's in the basement. It's all of the other little things that happen that many of us who don't relocate aren't even aware of. We don't know what we don't know. So your experience with all of that is incredibly valuable. You also have an active lifestyle, including tennis, skiing, and Ashtanga yoga, which we were just talking about yoga a little bit before and meditation before we started our podcast. So welcome, Hadas.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So, again, as we were, as I introduced the podcast, I talk about how did we end up here? So tell me a little bit, Hadas, about, earlier in your career, kind of where you came from. And then let me hear you talk about that a little bit, and that will be a springboard for our next piece of the conversation.
Yeah, so I am originally from Israel. I did the IDF and went through that whole military process, which actually is very valuable to develop, the work ethic and commitment and all that. And right after I finished the service, I came to New York. I studied interior design at FIT, which is one of the best schools to study interior design. It was a whole experience living in the big city and meeting with all the big companies that manufacture and dealerships of all the furniture and fabric and all the biggest interior design and architectural. So I was really in the hub of all that excitement. And after 4 years of studying interior design, I started working, and very quickly, within 2 years, opened my own practice. I had a few designers working for me, and my specialty was working with real estate developers on big buildings, anywhere from 10 units to 500 units, designed all the units themselves, which is kind of like a typical unit of bathrooms, kitchen, hardware, flooring, all that, but also the common areas, the lobby, the corridors, the amenities. And these buildings in New York, they're very fancy. They have a lot of amenities going for them, a pool, a gym, a recreation room, business center, all that. But that experience got me very in the loop of how it works on the financial side. A lot of my clients, they were money driven in terms of like the analytics of what goes into real estate, what goes into development. And I was always intrigued by that. And I was always working very closely with the real estate agents that represented them, because the way it works with these buildings is the agent is very involved from the very, very start and has a concept, a design concept, which helps me or helped me as an interior designer to kind of follow along. And then, the baby comes to life and they put it on the market and they sell or rent the units. And so I was very involved, and simultaneously, my husband owned a construction company in New
Wow.
York, a renovation company. I worked there during school, so I was very aware of how renovations are done and construction. So I had a lot of like the backside as well. And we started investing ourselves in different parts of New York, Pennsylvania, Florida, and building our own personal wealth even before we had children. So it just full story. And I ended up being a real estate agent just out of love to represent people, to help people achieve their real estate goals. It actually, on many levels, very similar to the reward of interior design. You see a project coming to life, and then the space is complete and people are using it, especially in the amenity spaces. So I used to tour these buildings and someone is sitting in the lounge and enjoying reading a book or opening a laptop. It just the biggest reward that someone is enjoying the space that you created. And kind of the same with real estate. It's so nice to have a call from a client how they love the house that we, worked on finding together. It could take 2 years to find a house, and we finally find it. And then we close escrow and I give them the keys. It's just that same type of reward. It's just very similar.
Yeah. So, but tell me, when you were a little girl in Israel, or in your teens, what was that thought? Who was a mentor or a teacher to you that got you excited about putting together colors and fabrics and kind of doing all of that? What sent you to New York? I'm assuming by yourself, coming to New York to be a designer. Tell me a little bit about how that happened. What was the inspiration for that? What was that catalyst for you?
So I was about 11. We were living in Germany at the time. We were, again, in a relocation. So I kind of know how that works, both as children relocate and starting a
Mhm.
new school and new friends, but also as adults. So as a child, I relocated from Israel to Germany, and my mom, for some weird reason, had a subscription to this interior design magazine. She was not building a house, she was not renovating a house, but she had it, and I was devouring it. I read every single page and I imagined this is like a very vivid memory because I was imagining what my house would look like. And there was this one article about the Louvre in Paris. And that is ultimately what my house would look like. Or in my 11-year-old kind of, and then when you enter the house, it looks like this modern farmhouse. So that's when I fell in love with it. And at the time, dating myself, Israel did not have a degree. And I was 11. So even fast forward when I finished the army 10 years after that, there was no real bachelor in interior design in Israel. So that's why I came to New York to do that. And actually, and I did come by myself, but my brother was living there at the time and I came to be with him and I found a job in a shoe store. And I worked there one day, this very
A fancy
interesting,
shoe store or like a regular everyday shoe store?
it was on Fifth Avenue.
Okay.
And one day, this very interesting guy comes in. He's dark skinned, but he has blonde curls and like green blue contacts, and his whole suit is like this neon green plaid. It's just a very interesting character. Now, from then, I was 21. So if you had walked into that shoe store, you would have said, okay, this is a very interesting salesperson because I used to sit next to my clients or customers on that big bench where they would try on shoes and totally interrogate them. Where are you from? What do you do? And like, I just enjoy people and enjoy hearing stories, hence why I'm here. But he was telling me that he goes to FIT and he's studying interior design. And it's like, what? There's an interior design, real bachelor's degree. And I say no more. I just signed up
So that was
and ended up
serendipity
staying.
or
Yeah.
serendipity or not, depending on how, you see things in the world. There's no coincidence in my world. But so when you came here, you didn't necessarily come here to go to interior design. You came here because your brother was here and
Yeah.
you were, okay, got it. And through that, so did you ever know that person? with the crazy
Yep.
green suit? Did you ever
No,
see
he
him
came
again?
in, he bought a pair of shoes and left.
You never saw him again.
No.
Wow. That was kind of that guy
Now,
with
today, as a
curly
real
hair.
estate agent, I would totally take his number and email address and keep in touch. But back then, no, it was just like, great meeting you.
Oh yeah, but just a very flamboyant character that must have
Yeah.
really like touched a creative, piece of you and flamboyant piece of you, and you found out about the degree, and that was kind of the catalyst for you to find yourself there. So when you were in design school, were there other kind of mentors and sources of inspiration for you in terms of design that you followed, that really excited you, that kind of carried you to another place?
Well, the one person at FIT that was my major inspiration was my studio professor. He was at FIT, all the professors are practicing interior designers. So they all have a practice or, are working in the field. And he had his own practice. He's this Japanese guy, like small, petite, and very challenging. So he was definitely my inspiration. Obviously, all the interior designers at the time that had big offices were also inspirations, but he was my aspiration. Like this is who I wanted to be.
What were the characteristics? So one of the questions that I often ask people is, tell me about some challenges that kind of made you the resilient person that you are today. But so you mentioned right away, you used the word challenging with this teacher, with this mentor. What about him? And yet you aspired to be like him. So tell me about some of those qualities. What were some of those traits that you found yourself wanting to emulate?
Well, I think as a student, more than anything, later in life that obviously changed. But as a student, when you're putting out your best work, really
Mhm.
so we designers in general, we pull a lot of all-nighters. So a lot of students come at 6 a.m. to the school, continue their project after a full night of not sleeping. And you feel like this is your best work. And then he looks at it and says, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you add that? How did you miss this? And so he's always like pushing,
Mm.
encouraging for better. And to me, that's very inspiring. Like you always want to grow and be a better person and see yourself in like the best very version of yourself, right?
Yeah, yeah. So you were with him. How many years is the FIT degree? 2?
4 years.
It's 4. So were you with
Yeah.
him for 4 years?
On and off.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's a studio professor, and every semester you take a studio class. And I think I had him like 5 or 6 times, but it's a very small department. So, you're always in touch with all the professors and even after school.
And did you feel that as you were moving towards the end of your time there and your degree, did you feel as though you were finally being able to create projects that were impressing him? Did you feel that?
That's a great question. I don't know that he would ever admit, no.
Interesting.
Yeah. And it is also part of my personality. And I always tell people, I like criticism. That's how I grow. So, I mean, obviously within the right words, and I also play tennis. I like to get coached. I'm great at being coached. So and that's why I'm here too. I mean, in real estate, that I want to grow. I want to be better. I want to help people better. I want to use my words better. I want to be more mindful and understand people. And, in real estate, we put so many hats on. We put the marriage counselor and the psychologist and uh,
Designer?
the designer and the cleaner and everything. And so, I just want to make sure that I'm the best that I can be on with all those hats.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think, it's interesting that you kind of point out someone who has just continued to push you because even in our line, even if we don't have a mentor in the office who's pushing us, every client, every situation allows us to rise to a new occasion. I mean, we could say that. Now, many people don't necessarily rise to those new occasions, but those of us that are, I think, good at our craft and continue to grow our business based on referral only have some sense that we have done that we have risen to whatever the occasion. And you're like, what just happened? But we,
Every transaction, we learn something,
oh my,
every transaction.
that is the truth. And I think
Yeah.
that makes you someone who will always continue to raise the bar because being teachable and having kind of a, there's a prayer about setting aside everything we think we know in order to have a new experience. And I just find that so true in everything. When you think you know something, you're dug in because you have to justify it, you have to defend it. And it doesn't allow you to be open enough to learn that there might be new perspectives that could be different or could be added to how you feel. So being teachable and coachable and knowing that and wearing that and living in that is very admirable. I really admire you for that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
one of the main reasons I made the shift from interior design to real estate, and when I made that shift, my interior design business was very successful. I had several projects going on when I decided to just cut everything off and
Mm.
go full on into real estate. But one of the main reasons I did that is because I felt like I wasn't growing anymore. You know what they say an expert is? Someone who made all the possible mistakes in the world. And with almost 20 years under my belly, I made enough mistakes to call myself an expert. And then I wasn't making mistakes anymore. So I was kind of very in a stagnant mode of like, nothing is changing, nothing is growing. I'm doing the same project, same bathroom, same kitchen over again. Okay, this cabinet is maybe a different color. And so it stopped exciting me because there was no growth. And it was either I'm going to go back and have a big office and kind of be the business side of it, or I'm going to shift into another mode. And so I decided to shift modes, and I'm just so happy I did that.
Yeah, I mean it's such a great career, and especially you feel connected and supported, especially as things have changed so dramatically. Tell me how yoga has informed all of this. Tell me about your yoga journey. When you started practicing, I know you practice Ashtanga yoga. I've practiced Bikram for many years and now just do a much milder hatha practice, but I did Bikram for like 12 years. I mean, I've done it all over the world. And we always say it's my yoga. He's not my teacher. So I just want to clarify that before we go any further.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I get
All of
that.
us say that. But yeah, tell me a little bit about your yoga journey and how that continues to inform and be woven into your daily life.
So yoga for me is the foundation. It's not, I mean, it is a choice, but it can't be taken away. It's like eating healthy. It's like, drinking water. It's part of what you do to take care of yourself. And if I don't do yoga, mentally and physically, I start falling apart. There are days when I'm just having really tough day and I'm just, what's going on with me? And I'm like, oh, I haven't had done yoga in 3 days. I need to do some yoga. So, it can't not do yoga, but my exposure to yoga came when we left New York after 11 years. I was at FIT, had the practice, and we decided to relocate because the weather got to us. And we had two young girls, and we did 180. We moved to Hawaii, to Maui.
Mm-mm.
And I decided that was my first time that I decided that I'm not doing interior design anymore, that I'm done. It's very demanding. And, when you get an email from a client, it's not an answer. It's like a day's work worth of so it's very demanding, and my clients decided to follow me, and eventually I did continue with interior design. But when we first arrived on Maui, I was like, okay, what now? So I was exposed to the Ashtanga practice, and Nancy Gilgoff, she was my teacher. She's one of the seniors in the Ashtanga community that was taught directly from Patabi Joy, who brought Ashtanga to the West. And it was a community. We met every day at 8 a.m. every day. I practiced yoga with her adjustments and just really got into the
So
practice. And
precise, though, too. That is such a precise practice.
it's very precise. It's a set series of asanas where you know exactly where you're facing, what you're doing. If you're inhaling or exhaling, the breath is very specific too. And it's built on series. So there's primary series of asanas, second, third, and you can grow. And that is what occurred to me is what's happening with my yoga is that I'm growing, I'm learning, I'm bettering myself. And I really needed that with interior design. I felt like it was kind of on, plateau. So that was the one thing that was growing for me. And I was very dedicated. And so today when I'm practicing, and I practice at home, only at home, it's the dedication, it's the commitment, it's the even on days that it's like not, I don't feel like doing it, but I roll out the mat and I get on the mat and I practice for my full hour. And it's just going over that hurdle of like, okay, let's do this again. Let's do this again. It's the dedication, but also it just clears my mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you have a practice, I believe specifically like Ashtanga and Bikram, where there is a very specific series, there's a certainty about that that finally allows the body and mind to come together in union. You're not wondering like, what's coming? What are they going to do next? Where am I at? It's very clear what's coming next. And so you're working within your own body, and that journey is really individualized to you, but you know what the sequence is, you know what's coming next. And if I'm sure, what was what you believe, there's been some divine order to what that series is. You're not going, from a seated position to camel. There's a
Right.
there's a folding and an unfolding that brings you there. So you trust, you give yourself up to that. You are open to trusting that.
Yeah, and I agree entirely, especially with real estate, that every day looks completely different and you don't know what's coming your way. And there's not, it's hard to create a routine in real estate. So at least with the Ashtanga or Bikram or whatever it is, you have a very set known, you know what's coming next. It's very methodic.
There's a level of certainty for sure.
Yes.
Was there anything that you was like, well, because it is very different, but is there any kind of teaching from that you can look back and say, because of what I learned through my yoga journey, I see how that really informs who I am today as a mom, as a realtor? Is there anything within yoga that, like a quote or something that a teacher had said to you that you can
Well,
think of?
not a quote or anything like that, but definitely going through the pain. And I've heard this a lot. So when you're just hanging in there, right? You're feeling the stretch. I happen to be I'm more on the flexible side and I work on the strength all the time. But
Mhm.
when you're hanging in there and you try again, and you can't get this arm balance for months, and then suddenly one day, wow. So it's like pushing a rock, nothing is moving. And then suddenly, whoa, it's coming together. There's like a realization, there's a disconnect between the mind and the body. A lot of times I see that in tennis too. So you know what you're supposed to be doing, you know where you're going, but it's not there. There's a disconnect between what the body is doing and what the mind is telling us to do. And when that all clicks together, it's so beautiful. So really just, one of the things that I learned is just keep trying. And then the other thing is that, when you are in an asana that doesn't feel great. It's like stretching and it's doing good for your body, but it's not comfortable. It's just hang in there and then it feels good.
Yeah, I think that persistence and that knowing, one of the things I always write is onward, like, with an exclamation point. It's kind of that feeling of that sense that if you are in the right place and you're doing the right things. And I was laughing when you were saying, that this isn't working this way, thinking about the lender and the title attorney and the home inspector and the person's dad
Hmm.
and all these things.
Hmm.
There are
Right?
times when it's all like a cacophony of sound. And
Yes.
then there's that moment, and especially I love that moment that maybe the buyers and sellers who maybe had some acrimony, but they don't know that they had the acrimony. Well, how come they won't let us do this? When they actually see each other and like all that melts away and they're just both so happy, and the one's kind of giving
Yep.
their baby and the other one's getting the baby. And yeah, it's just that's a wonderful moment for sure. When it
Yeah.
comes.
I definitely spot on feel like yoga is the story of life and everything we deal with daily.
Yeah. Yeah, I so agree with that for sure. So, can you think of anything that you would want to share with our listeners, kind of a piece of advice that you would give them from kind of taking that huge leap that you did when you first came to this country and following your intuition and the leprechaun suited guy, to FIT, to the transition from design to real estate, and then, weaving in your kind of yoga? Is there any advice that you would give a new agent coming in?
Well, the one thing that I would say after about 10 years on Maui and kind of accepting the day to day and not growing in interior design and not growing in general and feeling frustrated with that, and then taking the leap when I moved to New York, but taking the leap from Maui to San Diego and change of career is that just do it. I mean, life it's happening now, right now, this very moment, you and I talking, this is life. And don't wait for something to happen for this money to come in or for this
Right.
anniversary to happen or whatever it is you're waiting for. Just don't wait because it's happening now and you never know what's going to happen once you say, yes, let's do this. And, I kind of kept it on the surface of me moving to San Diego, but I do have a family. I moved my entire family and my husband, who loves Maui and did not want to move from Maui.
Mm.
And my girls were in school, and I took that responsibility for all of us. And no one was happy with the move until we moved. And now, fast forward a few years, everybody is so grateful and saying that it was the best thing that happened for our family. So, I mean, there are fears. And if you get caught up in your head and what may happen, what your mind thinks will happen, it's not real. This is stories you're telling yourself.
Absolutely.
Maybe they'll happen, but it's just a story until you try and just, I don't know. That's my 2 cents.
I just love that. And it just stresses to the present moment. That really is, as you say, all that we have. And I think you learned that through lots of lessons in life, but certainly yoga teaches us.
Certainly yoga. Yeah, you're right here, right now.
Yeah, yeah. So I do have a question that I like to ask all of my guests as we kind of wind up our time together. And it is, what is the best, most uplifting compliment you have ever received? And why was it so inspiring to you?
Well, this may sound cheesy, but when someone refers me,
Mm.
that's the best compliment. It's the best because it means that they trust me. It means that they had a good experience with me and that they trust me enough to give my name to someone else. That is the best compliment. I know it sounds cheesy, but so much more goes into giving your name out to someone than people may even think on the surface.
Can you think of a specific referral recently or just in general? Was there one that
Well,
really touched you
right
recently?
right before the I came from a listing appointment that was from a referral from someone I've been playing tennis with for 2 years. And when we first met, she said that her mother-in-law is thinking of selling her house. I'm like, oh, great. Well, pick me, pick me. And she was like, well, we know so many agents and we work with so many agents. I'm like, no, I totally get it. I was just kidding. And she gave my name out. It's
Nice.
been 2 years, but like, wow, thank you so much for doing that. It means so much to me that someone would do that.
Yeah, I so agree. And every one of them is so precious because no matter what, it's someone saying,
Mhm.
this is someone I love. Please
Yes,
take good care of them like you took good care of me. So yeah,
yes.
well, thank you so much for agreeing to join us on the podcast. I'm so happy that we got this chance to, the serendipity and kind of little magic sprinkles that happen with this podcast. It's been a real joy to have you today, Hadas. I wish you all the very best. I wish you continued growth because I hear from everything you say that is a real priority for you in your life. And so I wish you happy growth journeys in the future.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you for having me. This was so fun.
Thank you for joining us on another amazing episode of Lifting Others as We Rise. I hope you make sure to follow through on today's Catalyst for Change. If you enjoyed today's insights, please be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. You know your feedback really does matter. Stay connected for more uplifting conversations because remember, when we lift others up, we all rise together. So until the next episode, keep the positivity flowing and keep lifting up others around you. This is Lisa Parenteau signing off from Lifting Others as We Rise. Take good care.